One of our greatest crutches in life is pretending to be something we are not. Nothing excuses your failures more than pretending they don't exist. This is a blessing and an honor to have the opportunity to share with you all the very things I've learned that transform my life. I want to take this time out to truly give you a glimpse at how I came to be the man you see today. It all started in March of 2012. I was fired from my job as a customer service rep. I was 26 years old, unemployed, and living in my mother's house. But as fate would have it, getting fired from that job was the greatest gift I could have asked for. It ignited a fire inside me that I never knew existed. I suddenly realized my value was greater than the tasks I was aligning it with. I was fired from these jobs because deep down inside, I knew I was destined to do more. I needed something of my own, something that would benefit me and my new family. This is the same year my woman and I became an item. Now, she had 3 beautiful daughters from her previous marriage. I knew accepting her into my life was to accept them as well. And I also knew what that responsibility entailed. Let me just make a side note real quick. To all the step parents out there, do me a favor. Remove the word step from in front of the child's name. That word is a step away from your role in that child's life. Don't do that to them. They deserve to be loved no differently than a child born from your very cells. These girls are my world. They're not my stepchildren. Blood couldn't make our bond any closer than what it is today. When you accept a spouse with children from a previous relationship, it's a package deal. If you aren't ready to bear that burden and love it as if it were your very own, don't waste a single parent's time. It's hard enough as it is to be both mom and dad. Don't get their hopes up and lead them to believe you're about to throw them a life raft when all you're trying to do is float through. Find another pond to fish in. I apologize for that sidebar. That's just something I feel should be said. But anyway, back to 2012. I'm settling down with this tremendous woman and realizing now more than ever, I have nothing to really offer her. I knew I had to step up and do something. But what? After days of thinking and wandering aimlessly, I decided to get my Class A license. I figured I could gain some experience as a driver, save up some money, and one day buy my own truck. It wasn't a billion-dollar idea, but it was a start. It gave me something to work at. So I began the schooling August of 2012, passed the test October that same year, then immediately began to drive for a small local company delivering bottles of water to grocery stores. And with the right work ethic, dedication, and a relentless attitude, after only 15 months of employment, I thought I was financially ready to purchase my first truck. So I did what most of us tend to do. I jumped the gun. This was a huge accomplishment for me. My journey was halfway complete. I felt like I was on top of the world for about a second. 2 weeks later, reality threw a right cross that nearly took me out of commission. My motor had cracked. I had used almost everything I had for the down payment, and now I had to cover this massive repair only 2 weeks into my journey. I felt the pressure of being a business owner. And from there on, it was one thing after the next. Clean air filter went out, clutch went out, sensors, airlines, electrical wiring was malfunctioning, all on top of the routine maintenance. It was a nightmare. I took a huge risk and invested everything we had into a business that I was watching crumble before my very eyes. So I did what I swore I would do from the very beginning. I put my head down and I grinded it out. I hauled load after load like there was no tomorrow until I finally pulled myself up from beneath the surface. But in the midst of all this, it didn't take long for me to realize that this industry was not for me. It was 2015 by this time, 3 years from the start of my journey, and my youngest daughter was just born. I now have 4 little girls, and was going weeks at a time without seeing them. It was becoming unbearable for me. No dollar amount is worth sacrificing my time with my family. So after a crazy roller coaster of an experience, January of 2016, debt-free, I decided to hang it up. I got rid of my truck and returned to work as a local driver. But I swore to myself and my family that our current situation was not going to be our final destination. The fire inside me was still burning, but it was back to the drawing board. I was now working 12 hours a day hauling bottles of water. I began to listen to audiobooks on my phone through an old beat-up headset for hours on top of hours of everything I can get my hands on from the self-help section, all in search of an answer to the question that plagued my very existence. How can I make more money? I had no real major skill set, no formal education, and no idea whatsoever as to how I was going to change the trajectory of my life. Till one night, I lied there in bed, wide awake, watching my woman sleep. Yeah, I'm weird like that. Don't judge me. Anyway, I was feeling pretty low, like I was letting her and the kids down. And for the first time, and as far as I can remember, I cried. I cried out to God, and I worked up the courage to apologize. I had denied him in my life since I was a boy. I had rejected his existence, and I blamed him for everyone I ever lost and everything bad I ever encountered. But in this moment, I was 29 years old and at one of the lowest points of my life. I needed him now more than ever. So I put my pride aside, set my burden down, and I prayed. I prayed for guidance. I prayed for his support. I asked him to give me a vision that could change our lives. And then I prayed for the strength to make that vision, whatever it may be, into a reality. And as true as I'm standing here today, that very next shift, I stumbled across a book about wealth. That book taught me there are two types of income, active and passive. Active income requires you to exchange your time or a service in exchange for a reward. And this must continue in order to keep receiving the reward. Passive income requires you to exchange your time or provide a service for a reward that continues to come long after the job is done. As simple as this sounds, it completely shifted my paradigm. It was like a light switch turned on in my head, and I was now awake. After years of mindless dreaming, I was hooked. I finally found a starting point for the life I desired. I redirected my quest for knowledge toward everything I could find on passive income. It wasn't but a day that passed by when I discovered that I wanted to become an insurance agent. But not just any insurance agent. I wanted to be the best. I wanted my agency to be the agency to end all agencies. So I sat down that very night and wrote out a business plan and what my goals were for that agency for the next 10 years. The first milestone I needed to accomplish was to get my license. I was already thinking this was going to be a hurdle and a half. I worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, just to keep our heads above water. How in the hell am I going to find time to make this happen? That's when I remembered a lesson my mother always taught me. When there's a will, there's a way. I worked the graveyard shift, so I started taking morning classes after work, and I studied the audio of the lectures while I was driving at night. It took me 6 weeks to get licensed to sell insurance in the state of California. And in July of 2016, in what was arguably one of the scariest moments of my life, I began my journey as an independent contractor selling insurance. But wait, as if that wasn't going big enough as it is, I also bought my very first home just 45 days later. I was still working graveyard, driving 4 days a week, 8 hours a day, and now selling insurance part-time. But I was struggling. I wasn't selling. I wasn't making it. Something was not right. I did not work this hard and come this far to fall short again. So a friend I like to consider a mentor said to me, "You won't know if you could swim if you don't take off the floaties." He was right. I knew it was time to let go of my safety net. It was do or die. I had to risk it all if I wanted to win it all. So I quit my trucking job and became a full-time agent. And I can honestly tell you, the only person that didn't tell me I was an absolute crackpot was my woman. Everybody else told me I had lost my marbles. Maybe I had. But growing up in my neighborhood, we had a saying, scared money don't make none. It's now December of 2017, 1 year and 5 months later, and I could proudly say I'm still standing.